before na, ay, October na talaga yung sir. First na, may mo man pag-start ng klase.
Naka-live na ni sir ha?
Naka-live na siya.
Naka-live na na.
Dayon,
Perfect.
akong i-click on niya in advance. Kuan na ta, diri na.
Oo. Yes.
Dayon, ano yun?
University Library, and welcome to our second LibTalk series. May we request everyone to feel comfortable as we are about to begin. Now, may I request everyone to please stand for an invocation to be led by Reverend Arnel Franyer, and please remain standing for the Philippine National Anthem.
Let us pray. O Lord our God, may your goodness and love be present among us today. Come and bless our gathering with unity, hope, and vision. Build in us all a deep respect for one another so that we may be one with you. We pray for hope. Come and stir your hope within our hearts and renew our faith. Lord, we pray for vision. May your vision fill our lives as we seek to reveal your love. We thank you for this gathered community. We ask that you will strengthen us, restore us, and inspire us with your love. Fill us with your peace so that as we journey onwards, we would pour out your love and grace to others. We ask that our soul would catch the wind of your spirit so that we would take your promises to all the earth. In the name of Jesus, our Lord and Savior, this is our prayer. Amen.
Ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas. Kayang pag-ibig, Diyos na sinakalan, at ang puso
You may now take your seat. So once again, good morning everyone and welcome to our second LibTalk series organized by the Silliman University Library. And to our late participants, we welcome all of you. So kindly register and have a seat at the front and at the back. Indeed, today is a great morning as we are able to see the faces of our dear participants who are here in our LibTalk series. So we have participants from two different schools, from Silliman University and from Foundation University. To our virtual participants who are there in our Facebook Live, we welcome each one of you and stand by for more of our series this morning. Decision making has been one of the greatest challenges any student has to make in his or her life, whether personal or in his academic endeavors. These can either make them or break them later on. Any decisions made by ourselves has an effort on how we affect and carry ourselves later on. According to the dictionary, ethics is described as a system of moral principles or rules that say what is and not acceptable. With our talk today, we would be able to focus on how ethics can affect and influence how we make decisions in our academic life and personal life, and making sure that we do not regret them later on. This is also in line with the celebration of the World Philosophy Day, which is celebrated every third Thursday of November each year. To formally begin our program, let us hear our OIC University librarian, Assistant Professor Sarah Angela Ragay, for her opening remarks. A round of applause, please.
Good morning. As the world is celebrating the World's Philosophy Day, Silliman University Library is one in celebration with them. But what is world philosophy? According to Archie J. Bam in 1981, world philosophy aims to explain the nature of things comprehensively, like the nature of the world and all that is in it, including persons. This year's theme is the human of the future, and this is the first time that the Silliman University Library is holding this kind of talk with the title Illuminating Ethics, How We Can Help Better Decisions as Learners. And we are glad that we have come up with this topic to give awareness to our SU and neighboring community. It may sound so academic, but it will surely be a great eye-opener to us all, and we will definitely be able to apply this to our own lives, especially you learners who will come across different dilemmas in life and have to make decisions, better decisions. Ethics, as defined in Britannica, is also called moral philosophy, the discipline concerned with what is morally good and bad, and morally right and wrong. So knowing this definition, we have to determine if the decisions that we will be making is morally good or bad and morally right or wrong. Furthermore, we need to really look into the ethical dilemma of making decisions, better decisions for a better world to live in so that we can live a more meaningful life that will impact the whole society. So without further ado, in behalf of Silliman University Library, I welcome you all to our LibTalk.SU's World Philosophy Day. God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Assistant Professor Ragay, for that insightful remarks. And before we begin, again, I remind those who are at the back, there are still vacancies in front for you to occupy. All right? And now, to officially begin our talk, it is with great honor to introduce to you our speaker for today's event. He is a faculty member of the Philosophy Department in Silliman University. Prior to this, he taught at San Beda University and Jose Rizal University. He also held the position of Executive Assistant to the President from academic year 2018 to 2019 at Berea High School, where he also taught humanities and social science subject in the senior high school department. Furthermore, he was affiliated with the Loyola Student Center as a part-time lecturer for high school and college entrance test reviews for English examinations between 2018 and 2020. He finished his Master's of Arts degree in Philosophy, cum laude, at the University of Santo Tomas. He also obtained his Bachelor of Arts degree in Philosophy at Silliman University, graduating magna cum laude in 2018. In 2015, he was sent to the International Christian University in Tokyo, Japan, as a foreign exchange student for one full school year. Upon returning to Silliman University to finish his studies, he became the president of Silliman University Debate Society and was elected as the president of Silliman University Student Government and Negros Oriental League of Student Government the following year, in his senior year in college. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Allison Ladero for his speech.
Hi, good morning. Thank you so much, sir, for that very generous introduction. I really appreciate that. Okay, so yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, before we start, how is everybody? How are you guys? Good, okay lang. Yeah, all right. First of all, I'd like to thank the University Library for having me this morning as your guest speaker. And I also would like to thank all of you, especially those who are from Foundation University and also from St. Joseph. I believe we also have students from St. Joseph and of course from Silliman University. Thank you so much for coming this morning. All right. This morning, I am going to talk about the idea illuminating ethics, how it can help us make better decisions. Okay. Now, before I begin talking about the topic, I would like to preface this by saying that I don't want this to be too formal, right? In fact, I don't want to give a lecture. I think lectures are boring and we've always had lectures in the classroom. So as much as possible, let's try to make it interactive. And so I would be asking a few questions and hopefully I can listen and hear your insights as well to those questions. Okay. Next thing is that I assume that this is not a philosophy conference. Yes, we are celebrating World Philosophy Day, but I don't think this is a philosophy conference. Hence, I don't want this to be too technical or too philosophical or too theoretical as well, right? I simply just want to have a casual conversation with everyone about ethics and what is the value of ethics. Finally, and this is I think the most important part that I want to establish as early as now, I am not here to give a self-help talk. Okay? So just to clarify, I am not here to give a self-help talk. In fact, unfortunately, I will not be giving you practical tips on how to make better decisions because I don't think that's within my scope. I am a philosophy faculty, but I don't think it's in my expertise and it's in my scope to give you practical tips on how to make better decisions because we have different lives as well. So basically what I really just want to talk about is how valuable ethics is and how relevant ethics is, especially in terms of making better decisions and conscious decisions as individuals. Okay, so having said that, let's start with the presentation outline. So I only want to talk about 3 things because I was told that I only have 20 to 25 minutes, so medyo short lang. So I want to start with a moral dilemma. Again, this is not a lecture, so I'm not going to give you a lecture on what ethics is, what are the branches of philosophy. But I want to start with a moral dilemma so that we at least can be able to grasp the nature of ethics, right? Without having to talk about the technicalities of ethics. Secondly, I want to talk about some ethical frameworks. Nganong some? Because again, this is not an ethics class, and so I won't be able to extensively discuss all ethical frameworks. In fact, one semester is not even enough to talk about all ethical frameworks. So I'm just going to introduce some, and there is a greater point that I want to make after that. Finally, I want to talk about illuminating ethics, ethics beyond the classroom. As learners, what is the relevance of ethics to us, and why should that go beyond the classroom? Okay, so walang na siya to ang presentation outline. Is the outline clear? Is it okay? Yeah, we're able to follow. Okay. So with that said, we can proceed to the first part, which is an ethical dilemma. Okay. So we have here the trolley dilemma, and I'm sure some of you have already heard this one. For those who have not yet learned about this one or heard about this one, this will be an interesting dilemma. Allow me to give you a summary of it. Hopefully I can give an adequate summary. So in the trolley dilemma, there is a runaway tram or a runaway trolley. For some reason, it encountered problems with its engine, it encountered certain problems with its operation, and so it's not able to stop, right? It's not able to stop. I don't know, for some reason the brake had problems, so dito siya stop. And in that runaway trolley, you can see there are 5 people. These people are workers, so they're actually working on the tracks. So nagtrabaho sila sa tracks. But the runaway trolley is not able to stop, and so it can potentially kill 5 people. For some reason, these 5 men were not able to hear the incoming trolley because they're busy working. I don't know what they're doing, but they're busy working, basically. And then there's one guy there standing beside a switch. Think of that guy as yourselves. Think of that guy as yourself, okay? So you are standing beside the switch, and you can actually pull the switch. If you pull the switch, the tram would switch tracks. It would switch tracks. It would now go to a track where there is only one worker. So worker, diya po na siya. There's only one person. He's working, he's busy, he's unable to hear the incoming incoming trolley. Okay? So here's the dilemma. If you were the person standing beside the switch, will you pull it so that one person will die, only one person will die, or will you not do anything so that potentially it will kill 5 people, right? So that's the trolley dilemma in terms of its summary. Okay? So if you were the guy, unsa inyong murag buhaton, if you were the guy beside the switch, will you pull the switch or not? Pull? Yeah, pull. Why? Can I ask why? Why would you pull the switch, if you will? It's better to kill 1 than to kill 5. Right? So that's one way. Okay, one insight. What else? Or how about the others? How would you approach that dilemma? So there's already one answer. No, ang iyang answer is pull it so that at least only one person will die. How about the others? What will you sort of do? And what is your justification? Yeah. Aside from that, another answer na po, so that there's a diversity in terms of our answers. Yeah. It's a very difficult dilemma, right? Very difficult. Even if it's just a thought experiment, but it's actually very difficult. But yeah, anyway, other than that, unsa kailangan natong insights aside from pulling the switch so that only one person will die?
It's where it should go.
Mm.
So I have just to follow.
Yeah, so that's another insight. Don't pull the switch, just leave it as is because that's really the original track, right? So that's another way of looking at it, right? How about the others aside from that? Yeah? Okay na. Yeah?
If you're the one standing there, maybe it's better for you to step forward and be the first guy to be trampled by the.
Yeah, you sacrifice yourself, right? How altruistic, né? You sacrifice yourself instead of potentially killing other people. Why not you sacrifice yourself? And that's, I think, another valuable insight as well. Yeah, right? Diba? Okay, so what is the point of why we are talking about the trolley dilemma? So again, di ko mag-lecture, But what's the point of why we're talking about the trolley dilemma? The point is not for us to be able to solve it once and for all. By the way, until now, the philosophers are still talking about the correct answer to this. So until now, there is no definitive answer to this. So why did we talk about this one? We're talking about the trolley dilemma to be able to demonstrate that in ethics, there is no one single definitive answer to any problem. Right? Ethics is a very difficult subject to learn and a very difficult thing to apply in life because whatever dilemma we face, and we will always face dilemmas as people, it's going to have consequences. You will have to face trade-offs, meaning to say you will always have to sacrifice one thing over the other. And that's why the girl said, oh, just sacrifice one life. The guy said, sacrifice your life. And then mom said, no, just leave it as is, right? And I think those are all equally valid insights. And that leads me now to the next slide. If that's the case, sir, nga wala siya definitive answer, then what's the point of ethics? Wala man day siya definitive answer. The point of ethics is for us to have a moral map of different ethical frameworks, right? And this is where I talk about 3 ethical frameworks. And this is where we understand why ma'am said this, why he said this, and why she said this. Because there are actually justifications to our actions and decisions. And we can look at 3 things. Sir, nga nung tulura, because this is not an ethics class and we only have 20 to 30 minutes. So I'm really just going to talk about the 3 most popular ethical frameworks, and then there is a greater point that I want to make afterwards. So this is just a crash course. So please forgive me if I'm not going to be able to explain everything completely. Okay, so let's start with deontology. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so deontology is an ethical framework, right? That says actions are good or bad according to a clear set of rules. So in deontology, and by the way, this is Immanuel Kant. Hey, what's up? That's Immanuel Kant, right? So that's the guy who's really the most popular, deontologist, if you will. So in deontology, to make it simple, it's more about your duty. It's more about your duty as a person, right? It's more about clear set of rules. So for example, in the trolley dilemma, mom would say, just leave it as is because that's really just how it works. And that's your duty to just simply leave it as is. So in deontology, it's more on your duty. So in the trolley dilemma, you would probably not necessarily do something. You can actually also do something if you feel like that's your duty. But the basis of your action is duty. Okay? Next, we go to the next slide. Sorry, crash course na gid siya because there's a greater point I want to make afterwards. Utilitarianism. Utilitarianism is an ethical theory that determines right from wrong, okay, by focusing on outcomes. It is a form of consequentialism. And this guy is Mr. Jeremy Bentham, right? He is one of the founders, or probably the founder of utilitarianism. There's also John Stuart Mill and other thinkers. So in contrast to deontology, in utilitarianism, it focuses more on outcomes or the consequences of your action. So you do something if you think that the outcome of that is good. So in the case of the girl who said na kill the one person so that 5 people will live, she's actually using utilitarianism, right? Or there's an element of utilitarianism there. Because for her, it's better to kill 1 versus 5 people in terms of consequences. Okay, so that's usually the justification. And then finally, next slide.
Sige daw.
Okay, there, the third one, okay? So the third one, virtue ethics, and this is, can anyone guess who this guy is? Aristotle, wow. All right, friends from Aristotle. Aristotle, okay? So, for virtue ethics, si Aristotle ang murag popular figure. Obviously, he's not the only virtue ethics thinker, but he is the most popular guy about virtue ethics. So, it is the quest to understand and live a life of moral character. This character-based approach to morality assumes that we acquire virtue through practice. This one is a little bit more difficult compared to deontology or consequentialism or utilitarianism because it's not about duty, it's not about consequences, more on your character as a person. And that sounds really vague. But anyway, it's about your moral character as an individual. For example, are you honest? Are you patient? Are you courageous? Right? And he actually talks about the golden mean to say you have to be at you have to be at the moderate part of any virtue, right? Meaning to say dili ka dili ka dalo, dili po ka mugasto kaayo, insakto lang na murag di kay ka mugasto, di po kay kadalo. So golden mean, right? That's virtue ethics for Aristotle. So in that case, there are three ethical frameworks that we've already covered. So I think we move now to the next slide, and this is the greater point I want to make. In ethics, it actually doesn't give us a definitive answer to a particular dilemma or problem we face, but what it can give us is a moral map of frameworks. And then later on, I'll try to explain why do we need moral map? Why do we need that moral map? So it provides us with a moral map, a framework that we can use to find our way through difficult issues. There isn't one right answer. There may be several right answers or just some least worst answers. And the individual must choose between them. Meaning to say, when you study ethics as learners, there's no guarantee that, oh, I will now become an ethical person. I know how to solve the world's problems. No, it doesn't guarantee that. When you study ethics, what it can only do, and we need to be humble about this, what it can only do is provide us a mental map, a moral map of how do I approach this problem? How do I approach the trolley dilemma? Should I use utilitarianism? Should I use deontology? Should I use Aristotle's virtue ethics? Etc. etc. And more importantly, it's important to have moral map, or this moral map, because each problem that we face is unique, right? Each problem that we face is unique. Meaning to say, ethics is not black and white. You don't get to apply utilitarianism to all sorts of problems. Because our problems are different. No? Kanang wala kay kwarta, lahi na siya nga problema anang gamay imong score sa quiz. Lahi po ng problema na kanang nakay problem with your girlfriend or boyfriend. Problems are different, and that's why we need to apply different moral frameworks to different problems as well. You can't apply everything to one. You can't apply one theory altogether to all types of problems, right? So you will always have to look at different approaches to problems. Okay, so that's moral map of frameworks. And so what this means is that ethics is not actually purely speculative. Okay? Ethics is not purely speculative, it's actually practical. Okay? So we don't go to school, we don't go to Silliman University or to foundation so that we can memorize utilitarianism, we can memorize deontology. You have to memorize them for you to be able to ace your quiz or your exams. But beyond that, ethics should not be memorized. Ethics should be applied in our lives. No? Dili siya speculative only, it's practical. That's why we need to illuminate ethics and we need to go beyond the classroom. Okay? We need to go beyond the classroom. Because these theories, maayo kay ka mo memorize yung theories, but if you don't apply these theories in your life, then they will not make any sense. Theories will only make sense if they're applied to concrete social realities. So don't isolate the theory from practice. Don't isolate theory from concrete social realities. Right? That's the only way for ethics to become relevant and useful in our lives. You know? So don't divorce theory and practice or theory and daily life, theory and our own decisions. So that leads me now to the third part. But before that, okay pa ba so far? Or am I too fast? I'm so sorry. But yeah, hopefully everyone is getting the idea so far. Right? So it leads me now to illuminating ethics, ethics beyond the classroom. Why do we need to illuminate ethics? Why do we need to understand the value of ethics? Why do we need to learn? Why do we need to learn ethics as learners? Again, it's not simply to memorize theories. No, it's not simply to memorize theories. But I think there are 4 things that we can actually get from ethics. The first is it can restore our reflective power. Okay? It can restore our reflective power. Why? What's wrong? What's the problem right now? Apparently, right now, we live in a fast-paced society. We live in a capitalist society where we are constantly told to be productive, right? Do you not feel that? You're constantly told by your peers and teachers and parents to be productive all the time. That's why pag mag-rest ka on a Sunday, you feel guilty because I'm not doing anything. Because I'm supposed to be productive, right? I'm supposed to be productive. So we live in that kind of fast-paced world. That's why many of us are too busy working, too busy making a name for ourselves, too busy trying to be validated by the world, too busy trying to be validated by our friends, by other people in society. More than that, there are a lot of societal expectations. You have to be a lawyer, you have to be a doctor, you have to be rich by the age of 25. I'm 25, I'm not rich, I'm so late. You have to be living the life, quote unquote living the life. You have to go to Makati once you graduate from Dumaguete City. Go to Makati, branch out in Makati, go to, I don't know, Singapore. We're constantly told to be productive. We're constantly told to be this and to be that. There are a lot of societal expectations that we have to meet. More than that, social media has become the new religion. Social media has become the new religion. We operate based on likes. We operate based on popularity. Everybody wants to become a TikTok star. Everybody wants to get 1,000 likes for their bikini post on Instagram, right? And that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. But that's the kind of society we have right now. That's the kind of society that we have accepted as individuals. And what's wrong with that? The problem with that is you're no longer able to have your reflective power. You're no longer able to reflect about your life. You can't even reflect about your day. Because once you go home from Foundation University, ay magtrabaho na po ko, magama na po ko assignment, I have to do this, to do that. No point of any reflection, no space for any reflection, right? And that's why many of our mental health is affected. Because we're constantly told to become a lawyer, we're constantly told to become a doctor, we're constantly told to have perfect scores in the classroom. Everything has to be academic, everything has to be about money, money, money. Our mental health is at stake. In the long run, we tend to hurt other people and we tend to hurt ourselves as well. Because that's the kind of society that we have accepted for ourselves. That's why as learners, it's important that we study ethics. Ethics cannot solve our problems, sure, right? Ethics cannot solve our problems, but it can give us insights on how to view the world in a different way. That what if I try to step back first and reflect about my day? What happened today? Rather than having to constantly act as if you're a machine, as if you're a robot, that all you do is try to be productive. And once you restore that reflective power by learning ethics as learners, we're then able to make conscious decisions. The second one, we're able to make conscious decisions. Okay? The keyword is conscious, meaning to say we are aware of the consequences of our actions, we are aware of the decisions that we make. The sad reality that we all face is that no matter how rich or poor you are, no matter how famous you are, the reality is no one gets to escape the cruelties of life. Ariana Grande might be the richest person. Elon Musk might be the richest person. But even they are struggling with their mental health. Even they are struggling with a lot of issues that we all also do face every single day. The reality in life is that there are things that we cannot control. That's why every day, I don't know with you guys, but every day it's so depressing. It's so depressing to hear stories about climate change. So depressing to hear stories about political corruption. So depressing to hear stories about murder, about poverty, and things like that. That's why every day you get so tired going to school, you get so tired going to work because everything's just so depressing, right? And that's part of life. But what ethics can teach us is that while there are things that we cannot control, there are also things that we can try to control, right? there are also things that we can try to control. And so ethics reminds us that if we can inflict harm to other people, we can actually also choose to be kind, right? That we don't have to be bad and evil all the time. We can also choose to be good people, right? Because there are things that we can control. For example, we can choose to hold politicians accountable. We can choose to champion minority rights. We can choose to join socially driven causes. We can choose to be kind to other people. We can choose to help people even in the simplest of ways. So yes, sure, there are things we can't control. And life is depressing. Life is so sad. And I feel that so much. But there are also things that we can choose to control. And that's where ethics becomes very important. Because it gives us an idea that, okay, I have a responsibility, my classmates have a responsibility. Why don't we work together for a better community? Why don't we work together to form a better world? Or not a world, because that's too ambitious. Form a better Dumaguete, form a better Silliman University, just to make it, more realistic. No? Di na kayo tamabot sa world, yung marag pang United Nations na kaya. Okay? But basically, that's the important thing to remember. Okay? That if you can choose to do that, if people can make actions, they can also choose to correct these actions. We can also correct people's actions, and we can also correct our actions. And that's the value of ethics. That's why dili ta mag-memorize of frameworks, dili ta mag-memorize of deontology, utilitarianism. We apply them in real life. We correct certain people, we correct certain institutions, we correct ourselves as well. Okay? But the third thing to consider is that ethics can only do so much. I sound as if ethics is such a big thing and that ethics can solve the world, but no. Ethics can actually only do so much. It's very limited in power. Kaya naman. Again, as learners, since this is our topic, when we study ethics, it doesn't guarantee that we will make perfect decisions. So dili ta mag-expect that once we study ethics, perfect na ako mga decisions. No. Because there's no such thing as a perfect decision. Every decision, there will always be a trade-off. Every decision, there will always be one thing that will be sacrificed over the other. It's a matter of how you actually balance it out by looking at which one should outweigh the other, which one should be left behind. But there is no such thing as a perfect decision where everybody is happy, where everyone is okay. There will always be a level of sacrifice. And that really is sad, but that's the reality of life. That's the reality of life. So again, learning ethics, while it can only do so much, at least what it can do is give us a mental map or a moral map of different frameworks. That when you face this kind of problem as a student, then maybe you can use deontology, utilitarianism. That if you face this certain problem with your wife, with your husband, maybe you can use this. Right? Pero dito mo ingon nga, deontology ang gamiton ron. Right? No, definitely not. Right? That's not the point. My point is at least na atay basis on what to do. Dili kay, deontology ko today, utilitarianism ko tomorrow. No, that's not the point. The point is that at least we have a mental framework, a moral framework of which we can choose from. Okay? Of which we can choose from. Think, for example, of a basketball player. A basketball player who wants to become like LeBron James, or a basketball player who wants to become one of the best in Dumaguete City, that person has to constantly practice. Nga naman siyang mag-practice sige. Anong mag-practice sige ang basketball player? Para ma-try niya, ma-perfect, ma-practice niya yung skills and things like that. But at the end of the day, he will never be a perfect basketball player. He will never be a perfect basketball player. But by practicing, by constantly training, he becomes more prepared on the court. Mas prepared na siya sa court. In the same way that when we study ethics, there's no guarantee that all of our problems will be solved, but we are more prepared. We are more prepared to face problems because now we know different ethical frameworks as learners. And it's a matter of you applying that to your life. Okay? So that's why ethics is very important. It can only do so much, but it applies to all people. That's why in the university, ethics is a general education subject. It doesn't matter if you're a nursing student, an engineering student, or an accountancy student, you all need to take ethics. Because life's problems don't choose people. dili mamili ang problema. Everyone will always have problems, regardless if you're rich, poor, nursing student, accountancy student, etc., etc. That's why, again, ethics is not purely speculative, it's practical, and it applies to all of us, regardless of social status, religious backgrounds, orientation, and things like that. And finally, finally, so that we can already end this one, the last thing to consider why we need to illuminate ethics, why we need to understand the value and the relevance of ethics, is that it gives us an idea about how important it is to be kind to ourselves and to other people. Okay? The biggest challenge that we all face as people, dry na kaya akong lips? The most difficult thing that we face as a people is that no matter how much we know about ethics, no matter how much we know about right and wrong, it's still difficult to be kind to each other. In the Congress, we have a lot of senators, and in the Senate, we have a lot of senators. In the Congress, we have a lot of congressmen and women who graduated summa cum laude, who graduated from Ateneo, who graduated from Cambridge. Really elite level schools, really smart people. But why are they still corrupt? That's because knowledge is not enough. Knowledge is never enough. It's important, never enough. Knowledge is never enough. That's why we need to understand that ethics is not just simply to memorize facts. It's not to memorize frameworks, but rather for us to apply them in real life situations. And life is already difficult. Let's not make it harder by being mean to other people. Let's not make it harder by being mean to ourselves because lisod na kayong kinabuhidaan. Right? Plus, in this vast universe, I think this is both a sad and a happy thing. In this vast universe, we are a small dot. Gamay ra kayo ta ani nga universe. That is why nothing matters unless we exert effort in creating meaning for ourselves. And that sounds very existentialist, very philosophical, right? And we can only do that when we understand that we have a responsibility to other people as well as to ourselves, right? Jupiter, Saturn, and Venus will not come to us to rescue us from our problems. We have to be the ones to rescue ourselves from all of these problems that we ourselves created for ourselves as well. Okay? So we have to be responsible as individuals. And that's why it's important to be kind to ourselves and to other people. Give yourself a break. Ayaw na kayo ka-pressure sa school. Ayaw na kayo ka-pressure sa work. That's a very difficult thing to do, easier said than done, but I think we need that reminder. I certainly need that reminder, right? And I think everyone does. And when we are reminded to be kind to other people and to ourselves, I think that's where we get to see the greatest value of ethics. That's how we illuminate ethics. Thank you so much.
Right, thank you very much, Mr. Ladero, for the very insightful talk. And truly, ethics should be illuminating beyond the classroom. May we request Mr. Ladero to stay at the podium for our open forum this morning. So at this juncture, let us now proceed to our open forum. Should you have any questions, kindly approach the mic here in front. And to those who are in our Facebook Live, kindly leave a comment for your question. So who would like to ask questions? Or we can just pass the mic around. Any questions? Any questions? We're still thinking. Would like to ask one? Yes, at the back.
Hello. Okay, so we talked about ethics, and I really can't help thinking about what you mentioned earlier, sir, about existential approach of problems. And some of the existential thinkers in Russia that I think is Dostoevsky, were in actually writing about dialectics of nature, wherein the thing about civilizations from across classical and pila na ka generation ni past is that we approach our problem as if we're going to solve a problem. But the reality, or sad reality about that, is that you solve a problem, another problem comes in, and your resort, I guess, in 20th century thinkers or philosophers is existentialism, wherein don't try to think of the problem as something that you can solve, but let it be, and katungingan ni Ma'am, let destiny flourish as it is. And yeah, existential thinkers like Camus or create meaning for yourself and approaching life as a sad reality or negative, pessimistic view of existence. Does it help you, sir, reduce the level of depression or anxiety if you already are bounded with the negativity of life, the sad reality of existence? I'm talking about Kafkaesque thinking, or yeah, kind of absurdism, nihilism by kaning Nietzsche. And does it help reduce depression for you to handle your day-to-day level of mechanism about facing life as thinking na problema or suffering na daan siya?
Right, that's a really good question. Thank you. So I want to distinguish two things here, right? Number one, being realistic, and number two, being an absolute nihilist. Okay, let's start with an absolute nihilist. What's an absolute nihilist? That is somebody who doesn't believe that there's any meaning in this world. That is somebody who doesn't think that we can always have happy moments, who doesn't think that there's no purpose of why we live in this world, that there's no way that we can really become happy as individuals. I think if you are an absolute nihilist, you are also a defeatist, which means that you will never try to strive to uplift yourself. You will never try to strive to provide meaning and to find certain purpose for yourself because you have already given up. You've already resigned to the idea that there's no point anymore of living. There's no point anymore of why we are all here. So that's an absolute nihilist. The second thing to note is there's also a realistic person. Someone who understands that life is sad. Someone who understands that life is cruel. Someone who understands that death is inevitable. Someone who understands that there are a lot of bad things going on in the world. But he is realistic enough to understand that while all of those things exist, good things can also coexist. Which means that amidst death, amidst anxiety, amidst mental health breakdown, we also have the chance and the freedom and the freedom and the choice to make meaning for ourselves. And I would rather that we become realistic people rather than absolute nihilist people. That we understand that life is already sad, we come to terms with it, but yet we continue to live our lives. Because I also don't want us to become, what's say tawagan ng, ano bang, di po ka, say opposite of realistic, idealistic po ka. You're idealistic that there are no bad things in the world. I don't think that's a good thing also. Obviously, there will be murder, there's political corruption, there's climate change and all of these things. So you have to be realistic about these things. But do not also be an absolute nihilist where you no longer try to strive at least to give meaning to yourself or strive at least to be kind to other people. But that's my perspective. If ever you have a different perspective, if you want to be an absolute nihilist, by all means go for it. If you want to be living in a fantasy land, in a fantasy world, in Neverland, by all means do it as well. But I would rather that we are realistic, meaning to say we understand the problems of life, yet we continue to strive amidst all of those things. That's why I have so much respect for my mother. Wow, name personal. I have so much respect for my mother. We grew up poor. We continue to be poor today, my family. But despite the poverty that we faced, my mother never stopped working. My mother never stopped feeding us. My mother never stopped supporting us. Because while my mother understands that there are a lot of bad things in this world, she also understands that she can try to do good things for her family, for her kids, including myself. And I think that's the kind of attitude that we probably have to foster rather than living in a fantasy land or being an absolute nihilist. Yeah.
Are there any more questions? And to our Facebook Live, once again, if you have a question, kindly leave the comments in our live stream. So if you have questions, kindly approach the microphone since we still have enough time. No more questions? Yes.
Hi, Don. Hello, everyone. So, so the talk was all about making better decisions, right? Applying ethics to it. Sorry. Now, however, there eventually comes a point where once you make the decision, that's the final decision, right? And the consequences of that decisions will fall on your shoulders. Now, what happens on that point? Like you, as an individual, as a professional, how do you think you can apply ethics to help alleviate the burden of that responsibility the moment when you make that decision? That's it.
Yeah, that's a really good and a difficult question as well. Once you're done making the decision, once you're done making the decision, it doesn't feel. I feel like there's still that heavy feeling or heavy emotion that we will all feel, that we will all experience. For example, I could think of this example about people who actively euthanize their cats because their cat is already too old and the cat is no longer able to operate. And there are people, especially in America and even here, they euthanize their cat. And once their cat dies, it's a good thing because there's no more suffering for the cat. The cat can now rest. But at the same time, after making that decision, you feel all the guilt, you feel all the remorse, right? After making that decision. So how can ethics sort of help us in those instances? I'm not particularly sure if ethics really is the solution during those moments. I feel like the solution to those moments is for us to go back to our relationships, go back to the people that we trust and we love the most. For example, when I lost my cat person mo ko, sorry kayo. I'm a cat person and I lost my cat. And I'm just gonna make this example and then answer your question. When I lost my cat, I cried so much. That was the first experience of death that I ever had because I've never had any experience of death in my family or in my loved ones. My cat is the first loved one that I lost. And so I kept crying. I don't know what I was feeling and things like that. And there were obviously decisions leading up to that as well. But what helped me during those moments of grief and having to deal with loss was talking to my friends about it, telling them how heavy what my feeling was, talking to my family, talking to my mother, telling her how painful it is to lose a loved one, regardless if that's a person or a cat. So I'm not sure if ethics really is the solution in those moments. Maybe it can do something, but this is where our relationships become really, really important because you don't have to carry all the burden yourself. You don't have to carry the weight of the world alone. It's important that we also go to our relatives, go to our loved ones, go to our friends, go to our partners, and tell them what we really are feeling. And yes, they will not be able to solve your problem, but they can at least ease the pain. They can at least make you feel lighter and not as if you're carrying the world around on your shoulders alone. So most of the time, we make decisions as an individual alone. But after we make decisions as an individual, it's important that we also include other people in our journey towards making that decision and also enduring the decision that we make. So seek help from your friends, seek help from your family, seek help from other people, and I think they can really help a lot. Because I'm not all about self-help. I'm so sorry if there are Jordan Peterson fans and other people there. I'm not all about self-help. Kanang self-help, kanang nang ikaw ra may gakim-kim sa imong kaugalingon, ikaw ra tanan ga-absorb sa tanan imong problema. I don't think self-help is that effective. Yes, it's important that we internalize as well our values. We internalize as well, we rationalize our decisions as well. But I'm not all about self-help. It's important to seek help from our parents. It's important to seek help from our friends, from our loved ones. Because even if they can't solve the problem, at least they can make you less alone. They can make you feel as if your decision, even if it was probably a bad decision, they can tell you that it's okay, charge to experience na lang, Allison. There's more decisions to make in the future. And you will still commit mistakes, but that's just the reality of life. And it actually helps when you get perspectives from other people. So I'm not sure how ethics is really helpful in that sense, but I think it's important to go back to our relationships. So ethics is only one thing. There's so much more to life. We have our parents, our family, and things like that. So that's why, as I said, ethics can only do so much. Right? Ethics can only do so much.
Hello, good morning.
Right?
So, relating, what do you call this, to the future of artificial intelligence. So, since you said there in ethics there is no definite, so how do ethical practice people who practice ethical values, how would they approach in programming artificial? You would say maybe there's a robot. Android 58 has utilitarianism drivers, or maybe maybe this one has the altruism drivers. So what do you call this? How would we come about to make the perfect, so we can approach a new artificial, because there are new cars with self-driving cars, and maybe when it comes to drones, military, what do you call this? No people controlling the weapons. So how would they make the right judgment? So would there be a definitive way to program these robots, sir, or are we destined to be taken over by our robotic overlords?
Yeah, that's a good one. And a really difficult one as well. So AI is also something that has been debated until today, right? Artificial intelligence. You have self-driving cars, robots, and things like that. So what's the ethical element there? For example, with the self-driving cars, right? There's an ethical concern about how to go about it, because there's a debate about what a car should do if there's a potential accident. So for example, there's a girl that's about to cross the street, and then there's also a car, and then you are about to be hit by the car. But if you hurry up and kill the girl, you won't be hit by the car. And so in that particular instance, given that we give the responsibility to the AI, what should the AI do? Should the AI sacrifice itself by being hit by the car, or should the AI just simply hit the person or the girl? And so that's an ongoing debate today. I don't know what the answer to that is, because that's a very difficult moral dilemma. What I can only say is that what ethics can do is that it can give us perspectives about how to go about these things. So ethics is not the solution to this. The solution is us having a deliberation as a community, having a deliberation as an individual on which one should be the answer to that. Which means that for those people who are proposing, let's say the Senate, for example, just to make it more concrete, if the Senate proposes AI in the Philippines, should the Senate be the only one making that decision, or should it also include the population? And that's where deliberation becomes important, because you need to include the population in terms of what to do about that, right? Now, ethical principles, that's one thing, but another factor that causes differences is also worldview and the culture of the community. So, I'm not particularly sure how ethics can really solve that because there are so many factors to consider. The culture. Do you think Filipinos would allow AI, for example, in that particular fashion to even be to exist? Is that part of our culture? Is that part of our worldview? And then what kind of ethical frameworks will you use to justify that? So it's a very difficult question because you need to look at the context as well of the community you are talking about. In America, if Americans are okay with it and it's out of the deliberation of Americans, then culture has something to do with that as well. In the Philippines, we probably still have to have a thorough debate and a thorough discourse about it. Right? That's why I don't have the answer to that because I myself am confused with what really to do with that. And because I am confused, then I need the help of the population. I need the help of the government and the people as well to deliberate on artificial intelligence. So ethics is only a tool. It won't be able to answer the problem of AI, but it's a tool anyway that people can use to have a debate on it. So what's the outcome of the debate? I'm not particularly sure. But ethics is useful nevertheless because ethics can provide us different justifications to that. But there must be you must consult first the plurality of ideas people have. And then after consulting the plurality of ideas people have, then you try to make a decision out of that. So, yeah, ethics is only very limited in that sense. But there's an ethical issue there.
Okay, sir, from what you said earlier that social media is the new religion, I totally agree with it because as I've observed living here, I mean, generally living in a Generation Z, they define themselves through what people want to see from them, especially nowadays. They tend to really seek attention. Some people would seek attention due to certain problems like family, friends, and for example, there's a person that I know, she really wants to be involved in a sense, like inside a group where iPhone exists and really, really wants to be that person that Generation Z is. And to me, my parents helped me grow as a practical person, and I'm really thankful of that. But my concern is the younger generation because we are the role models here, and they tend to really want to be what they see in their ates and kuyas. So my question is, how would ethics help the younger generations now, especially the minor? They don't value themselves anymore.
Yeah, that's a good one. Right. So I think part of the reason why social media has become the new religion, at least for me and for her, is because we have also accepted social media as a platform where validation should come from. We have accepted that validation. If we are validated by having 1,000 likes, then I feel good, right? And we accept that because we no longer reflect about what really is valuable to us, right? As I mentioned earlier, we live in a fast-paced world where we just go with the flow. We just go with the flow of what society tells us. And that's why I think ethics is useful here, because what ethics can do when we study ethics is that it can ground us to what should be valuable to us, right? Ethics tells us, or ethics allows us to reflect if we are really happy with 1,000 likes. When we study ethics, we are able to reflect, am I really happy that I am now a TikTok star? Or are there other things to value in life? So ethics will not give us the answer, as I mentioned earlier, but it can help us mentally process what is valuable and what is not valuable to us. You know, in my case, upon reading a lot of philosophical and ethical frameworks, I realized that I should not base my value as a person upon the likes that I get on Twitter or the likes that I get on Instagram and things like that. That's why right now I'm not even very active on Facebook. I did not deactivate it, but I don't use my Facebook anymore. And that's on my case. If you want to use it, that's totally fine. I'm not saying that you should not use it. It's just that for the sake of my mental health, I stopped using Twitter and Facebook because I have been so consumed, gikaon kaayo ko sa sistema, to the point that every day I would post a lot every day. I would have political debates on Facebook sa una, atong bata pa ko, cringe. But doon kayo ko sa una, doon kayo ko kaya makikaway ko tanan sa Facebook. Sa Twitter, makikaway ko tanan sa Twitter kaya I wanna project this idea that I am a smart person. I wanna project this idea that I am morally superior. And then upon reading a lot of ethical things, na-realize na ako na it doesn't make me happy. It doesn't really make me happy, so I distance myself from Facebook, I distance myself from Twitter. I have Instagram, but I try to distance myself from all of these things. Moderation is the key, I think. So ethics cannot solve our problems, pero by studying ethics, it grounds us to what is actually valuable to us. And in my case, nakatabang siya nako by understanding what's valuable to me, that I don't have to depend on people's likes, that I don't have to meet everyone's expectations. Kana ganing na mo message nako sa Messenger. It's actually, in my case, I have internalized the idea that I don't have to reply all immediately. Na kung busy ko, di ko mo reply mo dahil sa Messenger, bahala ka dira. Right? Because the tendency that we have, if we have messages on Messenger, reply dahil ta. So mabuang tag una-unag reply. A lot of people to reply. And even sa email. Kanang email jud, abot na lang. Right? But I have told myself that I am not obligated to reply immediately unless it's an urgent matter. But if it's not an urgent matter, dili ko mo reply dayon for the sake of my mental health. So by learning ethics, nakatabang siya nako in that sense that I'm now able to reflect about what's valuable to me and what's not valuable to me. And I think for our younger generation, when they study ethics, hopefully they can understand that social media should not be the religion, that social media is not the only place for you to be happy. In fact, I'm not even sure if it really truly makes you happy. Maybe for a short moment of time, but then you're not genuinely happy perhaps.
So in relation to the first question, sir, you said that there are two types of person, which is the realistic person and the absolute nihilist. So I just want to know your point of view, sir, on does those persons who commit suicide can be called absolute nihilist person?
That's a sensitive matter, a very difficult question as well. Hindi ba ako psychologist ha? Dili ko psychiatrist. So I don't know how to diagnose people. So please take my answer with a grain of salt because I'm not an expert of psychology. I am not a doctor and things like that. Just my philosophical perspective. Isuda. Maybe, I don't know. I have to be honest, I'm not particularly sure. Maybe, some of them are. If we read Albert Camus, for example, Camus would tell us that you have two options as a person. You can choose to commit suicide if you think you don't find any meaning in this world anymore. Or you can choose to live with the difficulties of life, right? And for Albert Camus, he would say that when you commit suicide, you have finally accepted that there's no meaning for you, that there's no meaning for the world for you. And so probably you can say that some people who commit suicide, some of them are absolute nihilists. But I'm not sure about the motivations of people why they commit suicide. So take my answer with a grain of salt because every person who commits suicide has a different story, has a different background. So I am not supposed to make the judgment for them. But what I think is that I think some people are, but maybe some are not. And I don't want to be judgmental and act as if I know the story behind why they committed suicide. But it's definitely unfortunate that some people commit suicide. But anyway, my short answer to your question is I think maybe some of them are. But I don't want to make it a universal thing, a general thing, because again, people have different stories and I personally don't know the stories of Robin Williams, the story of people who commit suicide and things like that. But maybe some of them are. It's a difficult question.
Last question from Sir.
I was not supposed to ask a question, but this one's related to the AI. By the way, I'm Dennis, the ICT manager of the library. I think next level question to the AI we were discussing a while ago. Forgive my voice. Is philosophy and the study of ethics able to map everything in the if then else if it will be programmed? Is there really a definite if then else in ethics, like considering culture, considering all the aspects you've mentioned a while ago? Then second part of that question is, our being human as being aware, being able is already defined more in a bigger scope in ethics, meaning is ethics the bigger part of us as human being aware? This is more related to the AI pa rin. So these are two things. I hope you understood my question, two questions.
The second, sir, you mean to say is ethics bigger than us as people? Or like...
No. Since humanity is defined being aware, like we are aware, unlike other living beings, is that awareness, a bigger chunk of that is because of ethics? Is that even a discussion in philosophy?
Okay. Let me just write that so I won't forget. Okay, so on the first one, can we map out everything in terms of artificial intelligence? I don't think so. I think ethics can only do so much, because if we had the ability to map out everything, then we wouldn't have any debate already right now. But AI is still an ongoing debate, which is a testament to how difficult artificial intelligence is as a topic and as a controversial topic. And so even with ethics, it's not able to map out everything. For example, abortion. We continue to debate about abortion today because ethics cannot map out everything about abortion, because there are a lot of factors to consider as well, like culture, worldviews, religious backgrounds, and things like that of people. So my short answer to the first one is, I don't think we can map out everything, but we can try to map out the only ones that we can probably try to map out. So for example, AI. Do we want AI robots to kill people? I don't think we can. I think we can map out in ethics that we don't want AI robots to kill people. That's why we condemn drones. That's why we condemn certain, artificial intelligence technologies that don't regard the value of life. So I think in those instances, yes, we can map out some possibilities using ethics. But I don't know. There's a thin line also in many of those things. Which is why I don't think we can map out everything, right? And that's why we have an ongoing debate about artificial intelligence. I'm not an expert of AI, but the only thing I can say is ethics can only try to guide us, but it can't give a full-blown guide where we can make a blueprint, right? Where we can make a script, and then everything is already anticipated. I don't think we can anticipate everything using ethics. But second question, is that awareness anchored towards ethics? I think that's the question. Yeah, I think so. To some extent, ethics is anchored, or our awareness of the world, our awareness of life is anchored toward ethics. But ethics is not the only source of our awareness about the world. We have media, we have education, we have our family and the family values that we cherish, and the culture that we cherish. So ethics is only a factor of many factors of our awareness. But certainly ethics is a big chunk of the awareness that we have. That's why we know that killing is bad. That's why we know that respecting each other is good, because we learn that from ethics. But more than learning that from ethics, we also learn these things at home, when our mother would tell us not to do that, when our teachers in school would tell us not to do this. So yeah, it's a big chunk, but it's not the only chunk. There's education, there are institutions, there are other people like our family and friends, parents, and the culture as well, and the kind of media that you consume, and the kind of information that is, absorbed by your mental process and things like that. But yeah, definitely ethics is a big chunk.
Right, thank you very much everyone for asking questions. So if you still have questions within with you and you might realize it later, you may approach Mr. Ladero personally or contact him through his email address perhaps. At this juncture, may I call on Assistant Professor Sarah Angela Ragay and Ms. Rilin Taiko, the head of the American Corner area. Is Ms. Rilin here? To award our certificate of participation and as well as the token of appreciation. Allow me to read the citation. Library System, Silliman University Library. This certificate of appreciation is presented to Mr. Allison F. Ladero in grateful recognition and sincere appreciation, a resource speaker during the second LibTalk.SU series with the topic Illuminating Ethics, How It Can Help You Make Better Decisions as Learners, held on November 16, 2022 at the American Corner, Silliman University. Signed by Assistant Professor Sarah Angela A. Ragay, OIC University Librarian, and Earl Jude Paul Cleope, Vice President for Academic Affairs. Alright, congratulations and thank you, Mr. Ladero, for your valuable time in becoming our speaker for today's event. Now, before we end our program for this morning, allow me to recognize the following persons who has helped us in the success for today's Live Talk series. We'd like to thank Mr. Elmar Girasol and Ms. Rilin Taiko for graciously preparing programs and the venue for our today's session. Mr. Erwin Danridor for the PubMats and infographics in our live setup, just currently done right now. The Assistant Professor, Sarah Angela Ragay, for her tremendous support in the success for this morning's session. To all the librarians who are here in our American Corner right now, and to those who are watching in our Facebook Live for your support in today's series. And lastly, to Mr. Ladero for becoming our resource speaker for this session. Once again, we'd like to thank every student also who are here from Foundation University and from Silliman University in graciously hearing our Live Talk series for this morning. Thank you once again and congratulations for the success of the second Live Talk series. This has been Erwin Danridor. Thank you and have a great morning, everyone. We'd like to request everyone in front for our photo. Okay, so we may set up some chairs in the front for those who will sit down and as well as to those who will stand up. Okay. We're here na lang kami. Okay, you may station here na lang sa atong sofa and as well as the background. Yeah, have a seat everyone in front and also set up at the back to those two tall people.
What's your plan? Is it everyone? Hindi, parang yearly na next
Co-answer ka na. Quarterly?
Stop streaming, sir.
Oh.
Ay, sir.